Hi, I'm Jason O'Connell. I'm a creative director here at Saber.
And I am Tim Willits. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Saber.
So you guys, first off, congratulations. 500,000 copies sold the first week of the game. That's a tremendous accomplishment. What's it been like seeing people get their hands on this and be so excited about a game you've worked many years on? Jason, we'll start with you.
It's been awesome. It's been almost overwhelming to a degree, just watching the amount of streams that were up during that first week and seeing how people were experiencing it for the first time. There's a lot that you can even just learn from watching how people are playing, especially from the demon perspective, which is what I play all the time. There's a lot of tips and tricks that people are trying out that you never would have even thought possible. It's really cool.
And now, Tim, what does that open up for you from a business standpoint for negotiations with like future IP, like owned by the Evil Dead companies? Does this make your job easier or harder when the game's a success?
Yes, it definitely makes it's easier. As some people know, there are 4 different companies that have worked with us on the different, rights holders of this IP, from the movies to the movies. From the movies to the TV shows. So they are very excited by the success of this game, and we've announced, some Army of Darkness content. And the Evil Dead universe is very rich with a lot of cool content. So the success is really made it actually much easier to get approvals and get things moving along quicker. And it's also opened doors for Saber as an organization with other Hollywood license holders as well. So it's very exciting.
Can you guys talk about what went into the design process specifically for the demon? Because there's a lot of sub mechanics happening. You have infernal energy. You can set predetermined traps. You're playing kind of like a dungeon master in a way, like making these players slug through all these challenge rooms. What went into that design?
So the design was actually very tricky. I would like to give a shout out to our Madrid studio. They are actually the studio that created the game, and Saber's kind of a larger company, but we worked very closely with them. So the goal for the team was to kind of recreate that kind of demon from the movie, where the demon can possess people, can mess with the survivors, can cause Ash all kinds of trouble. So the team really needed to focus on game mechanics that allowed them to kind of build up their strategy, especially in the early parts of the game, when if you've played it, in the early parts of the game, the demon has less to do. So the demon's got to collect the resources, got to set the traps, got to figure out where the survivors are going. So we needed to add mechanics to the demon gameplay to allow for kind of engaging strategy building, especially in the early phase of the game. Because at the end of the game, it's just like bedlam, it's like chaos. But all that, collecting energy, setting traps, finding out where the items are was part of that bigger strategy.
Now, your map design is really interesting. Items and chests are procedurally generated to spawn throughout the map, but you have
Yes.
2 maps that never change. So talk about that. That had to be an interesting conversation, whether to try to make a procedurally generated map or to make like a stagnant map for gamers to play on. What went into that decision?
So it was definitely a hand-generated, artistic masterpiece. The movies are visually awesome. The sets and locations are iconic. So it was really important for the team to recreate those locations. There's like a million Easter eggs in the game, and it needed to look really good because players needed to feel like they're in the world. They're in the Evil Dead universe. They're in these locations. So that is why the team really looked at randomizing the locations, the spawns, but leaving the map as awesome as it was made.
Going back to the design of the game, you guys really nailed being able to jump in and out of human players as well as NPC players and control. And I know a lot of games struggle with that concept of jarring. The camera can be jarring, disorienting to players, but it's a nice smooth transition when you possess a unit and when you get kicked out of a unit. Can you talk about some of the challenges that went into making that feel so smooth and not disorienting?
I would say it's a lot of masking it with effects, sounds, and everything else. Because like you're saying, like a lot of times when you're playing some games, it does feel a little janky when you're popping in between different playable characters and whatnot. But I think there's a benefit of being the demon and how you're already kind of skating around on the ground and hovering around, that when you're attaching to a NPC or another player, you can just kind of play that sort of screen effect that's over everything that kind of just really sells that transition into there, and making sure the camera moves perfectly in between both of those, and it lerps back and forth.
What's been the most interesting way players have played Demon for you, Jason? Have you seen any weird builds that you never thought possible, or any weird strategies you haven't seen in your beta testing that people have been using?
It's amazing, I think, to see how fast people can either level up with their demon level just by placing traps at lightning speed, or just how quickly they can discover where the survivors are. I mean, the more and more games people play, the more they're getting into the rhythm of, they know where people are spawning in, and they're getting an idea of where pages or daggers might be. So to see how fast the really skilled demon players can burn down a survivor group is really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I've lost a game in under 5 minutes, so like I consider some really good demon players out there know what they're doing.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it helps when they know what they're doing, and you're with a team of survivors that's spread out.
Which is so funny, because Jason and I were just talking earlier, and he's been playing as a demon, preparing for our stream that we're going to have later. And Jason said, "Man, these survivors have gotten so good. They just know what to do." So it's funny that you said that as well. That some demon players have gotten really good as well.
Now I know this is data that's ever changing, as your game is still very young in its cycle, but do you have like an estimated percentage of survivor wins to demon wins? And like, what do you consider a survivor win if they get to the very end and die, or if they get 2 objectives and then die, or like what is considered a win? And do you have the win-loss ratio for demon and survivor that you can share with us?
It is surprisingly even, because we pull every single stat from the back end. We know who plays what weapons and stuff. We don't know your personal information. We just know what character you play. But it's surprisingly even. We're seeing that there are some adjustments that we need to make to a few characters. We've already put out a patch. We're looking at information from our feedback portal, and then we're looking at backend information as well. And we've made some slight adjustments to the backend without even really telling a lot of people. But yeah, it's still pretty 50-50, I think. Oh, sorry. And we try to encourage players to, even if they don't win, they can earn spirit points by doing certain things in the world and having a good time. So it's okay if you play a couple of matches of Evil Dead and you don't win, as long as you're having fun and you feel some personal accomplishment. So that's one of the things that the team said was very important, that even if you don't win, you can still do something to help your team feel good about playing.
I think also, from what I've experienced in just the past couple of weeks of playing, when a match feels like you've already lost, you feel overwhelmed, you feel like there's no way you can win, it can actually turn around just by the slightest mistake. And again, I'm talking from the demon perspective, but it can, just by one person trailing off or trying to do something by themselves at that last moment, where you can actually get the upper hand and come out on top.
Yeah, it's that game loop that I find so fascinating on both sides, because if the survivors take too long to loot or find good items or do the objectives, gives more time for the demon to print, and vice versa. If you're not finding the survivors, gives them more time to loot. It's that interesting kind of a battle of attrition as the game gets more deadly as it continues on until the end game collapses. Resources dwindle and timing. There's even a time limit on it with the storm closing in. Like, you have all these cool different sub mechanics that really make the game flow in a very nice, natural way. What went into that gameplay loop specifically? Because it's not just one loop. You have to look at 2 different sides of the loop, the survivor side and the demon side. Can you take us through that process, Jason, and how you tweaked that and worked with that to make sure each side was having fun and had, like Tim said, had stuff to do?
I think starting out, there was the team really wanted to focus on stuff that was familiar to gamers in general, to people that like these type of games, and to kind of try to even both sides with that type, or those type of mechanics, like you're mentioning, like the storm coming in and stuff like that. It's something that people have seen before and they'll easily recognize it. But then as far as balancing goes, I mean, that was just give or take a million play sessions. That's just what it comes down to. It's your daily, weekly, just pretty much every day, just getting a group of people together and playing through it, making changes, rinse, repeat, and trying to find that perfect sweet spot
So I want to talk about the demon. So I want to talk about the demon talent tree for a minute here. As your game, as I said, it's a game as a service. It's going to continue to evolve, and you'll do patches and balancing. But what does the future hold for the demon tree specifically? And I'm thinking in terms of like the demon vision, which seems to be the last thing a lot of players pick on the talent pool until they're maxed out. Do you have any plans to change that, modify it, make improvements to certain skill trees in that talent pool for the demon specifically?
That is a very good question. I know the team in Madrid had talked about some of that, but I don't actually know specifically, and I don't want to misspeak. I mean, do you know, Jason? Have they said anything about that?
I don't know, but I know, I mean, at least
Yeah.
from one perspective, that if a lot of people are calling it out, then it's in the feedback that they've been getting, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
and they will definitely be focusing on what people are looking for.
Now, I want to see this game stick around for a long, long time. So what do you guys do to plan on expanding the life of the game as a service? I mean, obviously, I think you guys have already had plans to announce new maps, like the Castle Kandar map that's coming out. There's also been a few leaks for potential survivors and people requesting different demons. We won't get into that here, but how do you plan on going forward with this? I mean, obviously, we also saw some skins for Henrietta as well. Like, how can we support the game financially for you to keep making content and keep patching it?
That is a great question. Yes, we do plan on supporting the game for a long time. We have the new Castle Kandar map, which is free for everybody. We have our season pass. The Evil Dead universe is rich with content, so there are many more characters. We'll have demon armies coming out that are going to be freaking awesome. So I mean, again, just keep playing it. If tell your friends to jump in. People who have not watched the movie or the TV series, and I feel bad for you. I truly believe, and we sold enough copies that I know this to be true. There's something in this game for everybody. If you're an action horror fan and you like playing cool games with your friends, you will have a good time in this game. So, the best way to help us is grab your friends and keep playing.
No, absolutely. Like I was saying before, like I think the initial design of the game is so interesting and unique to anything else that I've seen in a long time that even if you remove the Evil Dead license, It still works tremendously well. You could have called it Demon Hunting or whatever, and it would still work just as well. So
yes, but we would not have been able to get Bruce Campbell to help us.
This is true. This is true.
And he's awesome. And he's awesome.
Can we, Jason? Can we talk about the shovel sound effect? I've played a lot of games in my life, but damn, that shovel sound effect is so gratifying. I've had people leave games if someone doesn't get the shovel because they just love that sound effect. Can you talk about that specifically? I think it's just something that stands out in the game so well. That dong is so gratifying.
It's probably more of a happy accident. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths in the sound department, but that's probably just one of those things that, I mean, like you're saying, it resonates with people. It's just one of those weapons that once you hear it, you like you said, you definitely just want to make sure to play with it. It's that satisfying.
I mean, when you have a 4 group of survivors and 2 or 3 people have shovels, that sound effect just gets me rolling every single time you're in a battle. You just hear it consistently and it never gets old.
That's awesome.
Speaking of weapons, can we talk about like some of the new weapons that you wanted to add, or maybe were there weapons in the pre-design phase that didn't get into the game that you had to remove for just time reasons, constraints, balancing issues?
Oh, that's a dangerous question. Yes, because there's always stuff. So we basically stuck with things that were used in the movies and the TV show. But like you said earlier, the success of the game has allowed us to kind of branch out and get a little more freedom. So without giving away too much, I can definitely tell you that we will have some cool weapons that will be released in the future. But no, I would hate to say that we were going to use a weapon and then we did not use it, because then players will be sad.
A lot of the initial design, I don't want to get too nitty gritty into the details, but I feel like a lot of this game's balancing has to do, it's almost like a fighting game. Like you're working in frames. How many frames is this attack? How many frames are you vulnerable? How many frames are you invulnerable when you do the dash? Jason, can you elaborate on that process a little bit? You mentioned it's a lot of trial and error, but that's like, how much frame data did you get into this to make sure that everything felt good, wasn't too long, wasn't too fast, that kind of stuff?
I mean, you kind of hit it spot on. It's definitely like very similar mechanically. it'd be more of the once the animations were put in, right, and you're really selling the the strength of a swing, or the wind up or something like that. That's the stuff that you would tweak afterwards, because it was like, oh no, that's way too long, even though it looks awesome. It's taking way too long for that attack to actually connect. So then that's where just the rinse repeat of just tweaking. Let's speed this up, let's slow this down, just to maintain the awesomeness of the how the animation is playing, but make sure that it's not too brutal on the gameplay side.
Yeah, and elaborating on that, like speaking of that, your animation team, it should be commended. They've done such a fabulous job at those finishers and those executions. They're smooth, they're funny, they're over the top, very, very Evil Dead-esque. Like, how fun was it working with that team and creating these finishers for basically multiple finishers for every weapon?
You'd have to think of how those meetings go, right? They're sitting in a conference room. I mean, at least they have fantastic source material. They could look at and just see the gory, just over the top nature of some of the kills that are in the films, and just bringing that into a game space and saying, what can you do? These are the weapons we have available. These are the characters, and these are the Deadites. How can you destroy them? How can you maim them?
I'm curious if the traps are predetermined locations in the map. At any point in the design phase, were you able to place them kind of anywhere within a certain radius? How did that evolve?
We had the ability to put them anywhere, and it just got out of control really fast. It's like putting exploding barrels, 1,000 of them in a room. It just causes problems.
What's wrong with that? That sounds great.
Yes. Obviously it was just a balancing issue where we had to put them where they could go logically. Otherwise it would just get out of control. It's just a balance. But yes, you are correct.
This game has a very has that cardinal rule of competitive games: easy to pick up, difficult to master. Can you talk about that formula that you applied to this game? Because it's clearly there. The objectives, it's really simple to understand what you have to do. Find items, do the objectives, demon player, kill players, but there's so many sub-levels of meta in between there.
Definitely nailed it on the head. There are game mechanics that people will instantly be familiar with. And the phases of a session where you search for loot, you find the crates, you level up your survivors while the demon kind of sets their strategy, and then you kind of get into these moments of intense action. And then so there's definitely those types of mechanics, but as you said, the strategy and create like the randomness that can happen, like the vehicles. When our team in Madrid said we're going to add vehicles, I personally was like, what? Why do we need vehicles? But it's so much fun because there's so much craziness that can happen with these vehicles. Like, you can park them on the objectives, and then the survivors can't get them, or everyone jumps into a car and then the demon possesses it, or you get like car chases that happen. So because there's so much stuff to do in these kind of the bigger world that is the Evil Dead, and there's so many kind of fun tools in your toolbox that each game something wacky happens that just makes it so much fun. And that's what I think that's what everyone's most proud of.
I'd like to add on to that too, actually. Sorry. Where I think just the add like another layer of depth is as players are getting better and as they're getting fully maxed out player builds, you'll start to notice that, like, as you get into a game, it's like, oh, you're gonna have the hunter crew that's just gonna burn down your boss character really fast because they're really focusing on their ranged abilities and other. But as you'll see, there's ways to get around that as the demon player. You even though it feels overwhelming, it's like you can focus in if you know that one hunter is going to be causing an issue. You spend the majority of your time focusing on them and trying to get them away from the group and trying to possess them and then use their abilities against their friends. It's kind of just back and forth when it comes to that kind of stuff.
One of my favorite things to do is possess people and walk them into traps. It's one of my most favorite things.
Jason. That's Jason. It's Jason.
They're right in the middle of an area, just a bunch of traps. They have to fight their way out. That's what we're talking about, the underlying meta. There's so many different ways to play. And speaking of that, the demons specifically have 3 different classes, and they all play so differently from each other in terms of strategy. Jason, can you talk a little about like that design process for the demon players and how the classes evolved?
I think it was a lot of it was based on just focusing on which demons are going to be picked from the series, and then seeing what kind of abilities sort of spilled out of that, and building up an army based on those individual archetypes, and just kind of and going from there. You know, I mean, it's like for me, I'm a Evil Ash all the way. That I've got, I've always played him, and spending the majority of my time just taunting everybody with my flautist and everything. It's so much fun.
So, Tim, it's kind of a far here question, but like now since the game is successful and it makes it easier for IP licenses, would we possibly see like maybe paid music DLC packs, or something I would personally love to see is like a skeleton voice pack where they talk and say the lines from the Army of Darkness films because they're like, the Three Stooges.
Hey, you're mine, sweetie! Get off of her!
That's not a bad idea. I mean,
like
if we do that, do we need to give you a
No,
cut now?
absolutely not. At
but
Shack
yes.
News, on the record here, you get free ideas to make your game better. You don't have to pay us a dime.
But yes, so the license holders have been really great to work with, and Bruce Campbell has been great to work with. So yes, we are trying to kind of push the envelope as far as we can. So hopefully we'll have some success, and you'll see some cool things in the future.
This is also a tough question you don't have to answer, but with the success of the game being so successful, it's a lot of successes, will we possibly see like original demon characters, original survivors that Jason and you will throw into the Evil Dead world?
That's a good question, but I think the success of the success has made it easier for us to maybe. Again, I don't want to give away anything, but
right.
But we are in conversations with some folks on some cool stuff, So, but yes, you're right. Everything is I know I'm just rambling now, but yes, it's open doors for us to have more thorough conversations with all kinds of license holders.
Game looks gorgeous on PC. I play it on Xbox. Gorgeous game. I don't have any frame drops. It's a gorgeous game. But can you give us any updates on the Nintendo Switch port? I know it's coming, but we don't have a release date, and we've kind of been in the dark about it for a while.
Yes, we've included it in kind of our announcements. It's so early, so we're just kind of looking at exactly how that will end up. So again, it's super early on that.
And then something I also just have to ask is like the netcode. It's great. I mean, I've been playing with friends across the coast. I'm on the West Coast, East Coast. I mean, I don't run into many lag issues at all. I'm playing wirelessly on my Xbox or on my PC. Is there rollback netcode on this? Because it just runs buttery smooth.
No, that's our development team is in Madrid, Spain, and we are all in Texas. So they had to make a really good netcode. No, I'm joking. The team has made multiplayer games. Like actually, the last game that the team made was WWE, Battlegrounds, and NBA Playgrounds and stuff. So they know their netcode really, really well.
And then my last question before I let you guys go is, when can people run around in the Castle Kandar map, and where can we expect next from the Evil Dead game?
The Castle Kandar map will be available to play soon, and it is very awesome. Trust me.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I love the game. I'm a huge fan. I play it every night. I can't wait to play more of it. I want to continue to give it my love and support for as long as you have the servers up. I hope this has a long, long life. Tim, Jason, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're busy people. For more content like this, stay right here at E6.